Hello, welcome to Baltic World. My name is Crispin. I have just received a personally signed letter from the Australian Minister for Defence and Deputy Prime Minister of Australia, Richard Marles, regarding the war in Ukraine. There is a backstory to this. I read a long-form article by Anastasia Taylor-Lynn, which had a huge effect on me. She was in Ukraine at an eye hospital, and they were seeing a massive surge in numbers. As all of you will be aware, Russia had moved to focus on the east of the country, bringing huge amounts of artillery to bear. Now, before the HIMARS changed the game, that was leading to huge numbers of Ukrainian casualties from debris, from shrapnel, and one of the worst forms of injury was the eye trauma. Now, I remember Australians in Afghanistan, they have these extremely effective ballistic eye protection equipment. People were experiencing extraordinary impacts and saving their eyesight. And I thought to myself, look, the Ukrainian soldiers, they need to have the same quality protection. So first, I reached out to Anastasia and said, look, I'm going to contact the Australian government and see if there's anything more we could do to get ballistic eye protection to the frontline soldiers in Ukraine to reduce this form of injury, because it's really having an effect on the battlefield, not to mention the individual lives. And she responded, of course, positively, knowing that her article had an impact. Well, I'm pleased to say that the Minister for Defence has responded, and I will read out the letter in its entirety. Dear Mr. Rore, thank you for your correspondence of 10 June 2022, this was a little while ago, concerning ballistic eye protection for Ukrainian soldiers. I appreciate the time you have taken to bring this matter to my attention. Australia is committed to supporting Ukraine. Since Russia's invasion of 24 February 2022, Australia has provided $388 million in tailored military assistance to the armed forces of Ukraine. This includes 60 Bushmaster protected mobility vehicles. Now, that's an Australian-made assault vehicle specifically requested by President Zelensky. It's 3 times the number that I had previously heard, so that's a significant fleet actually. Heavy artillery, armoured vehicles, anti-armour weapons, and medical equipment. Australia has focused on accommodating Ukraine's immediate priorities and addressing their urgent requirements, which is another way of saying we have responded to their official requests. For personal protection of Ukrainian soldiers, Australia has provided a substantial amount of body armour and helmets, which I think means that we've provided this equipment already. Currently, Defence has no excess stock of ballistic eyewear to send to Ukraine, and sending existing supplies would impact the preparedness of the Australian Defence Force. We remain committed to supporting the government of Ukraine as it defends itself against Russia's brutal invasion. Thank you again for raising this matter. I trust this information is of assistance. Yours sincerely, Richard Marles. There's a couple of things I really appreciate about this letter, but first, if you find value in this discussion, please hit the like and subscribe button because it helps grow the channel a ton. The significance of this correspondence, to understand it, you need to know something about the Australian bureaucracy. When you write to the Australian government, you seldom get something to the point. What happens is some departmental official will write back to the constituent with media spin, standard words that have been approved by advisors. It has a practical purpose to make sure that everybody receives the same message, you don't get conflicting advice, but also to basically project what the government wants everyone to hear rather than answer the question that's being asked. Now, that is not what has been done here. This letter is direct. The minister talks about the explicit material and money that's been provided to the armed forces of Ukraine, the body armor and helmets that have also been donated, which was what my letter was about, and then specifically the ballistic eye protection and the limits of the Australian stockpiles. It is exactly what I was inquiring about. It all fits on one page, but it's packed full of content. So I really appreciate, first of all, it's written well, but also answers my question. The second thing is it came from the minister himself. That is rare and shows the personal commitment that Minister Marles has to supporting Ukraine on behalf of all Australians and all the free peoples of the world. So thank you very much, Minister Miles, for providing this. I will share this as widely as possible as I am in this video. And I'm no longer a member of his party. I actually have become increasingly conservative over the years. He's on the more progressive side of politics. But I have the utmost respect for Richard Miles, who I had the honour and privilege of meeting once when he was the Assistant Minister for Foreign Affairs many years ago in a previous Labor government. He's now early in his term after the Labor have returned to office here in Australia, and he seems to be hitting the ground running. So appreciate his correspondence, and I can see from this, even though he can't donate more eye protection than as I requested, he's clearly doing the utmost to the limits of the Australian government's ability and the capacity of the Australian Defence Force to keep Ukraine fighting and defeating the Russian invasion. So just a quick note of thanks. And if you have any advice on what else Ukraine might need. And it's also useful to note the impact that journalism can have in this space. I was affected by the article that motivated me to contact the Australian government. So it's really important to get information out there. And just a hats off to all the journalists that are on the ground in Ukraine, putting themselves in harm's way to bring us critical stories and to share the truth about what's happening in this brutal war. All power to the people of Ukraine and liberating themselves from foreign occupation. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.